Practicing. Okay. Right. Well, I have to say, tonight we are pleased to welcome back Leah Sagerbaum as our judge. She judged for us many years ago, and then, as we just were talking about, she moved to the boonies, and we haven't seen her in a while, not to mention COVID. But she's back. She's an artist, master photographer, master craftsman, certified professional photographer, painter, and owner of Leah Portrait Design and Leah Pix, Pix. She's a member of the Professional Photographers of America, Professional Photographers of California, past president and active member of the Professional Photographers of Orange County. She has judged hundreds of photography competitions through the years. She also teaches and has taught workshops on photography in the Western US while continuing to work on her own craft. To give you a tiny glimpse of Leah's photography history, she said that she's had a camera in her hands for about 50 years. She's been involved in the fine arts and inspired to create since she was a child. She officially educated herself via 5 colleges, achieving many degrees, including BAs from Massachusetts College of Art in Boston and Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara. Before opening her own studio in Dana Point in 1982, she worked in Boston, New York City, and Hollywood. In New York, she worked for ABC Television and managed a high fashion photography studio. She worked in numerous commercial LA and Hollywood studios and was honored to photograph equestrian events in the 1976, 1980, and 1984 Olympics. She's also an accomplished painter and a visual artist with total passion for her craft. She specializes in family, lifestyle, equestrian, pets, couples, intimate, post-bridal, maternity, infants, and children's portraiture, basically all kinds of portraiture. She prides herself in designing portraits with a feeling of fun and comfort in natural settings, believability, and honest and authentic captured moments. She enjoys horseback riding, all equestrian sports, traveling, swimming, snow skiing, kayaking, sailing, and scuba diving. She feels that being active and out in nature is the best medicine, and her spiritual soul is fed. She's traveled extensively worldwide, including circumnavigating the world, the Southern Hemisphere, as a participant in the Chapman College World Campus Afloat. That's something I always wished I'd done. She has built her own business. She's built her own business over 30 years. Now it's in both Orange County and Fresno counties, and she's passionate about creating meaningful storytelling photographic portraits for her clients. So welcome, Leah. We're anxious to have you judge for us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you all. Good evening.
Good evening.
And it's a pleasure to be back. And thank you for that, going over a little bit of my background and who I am and what makes me tick. But I really want to talk about all of you and what makes you tick. Why do you love having a camera in your hands? What excitement does that create for you? Why do you do it? And when you look through that lens, how do you get excited and why do you get excited? And what do you feel? I'm more touchy-feely and right brain than left brain, not so techie, but more about the feeling side of life and intuiting my way through my world and through my creativity. And I think for any of us, when we can get in touch with that part of ourselves, there's so much more personal touch involved. There's so much more communication. There's so much more sensitivity involved, and simply being human, which is we all are, right? So I want to encourage all of you, whether you have ever picked up a paintbrush or not. I know you all have a camera of some kind, but I'm going to encourage you all to take time when you can make time and go to photographic galleries, painting galleries. Certainly Laguna Beach is very close by. LA, there's all kinds of fabulous museums and galleries there. Up and down the coast, we have here in California, we have a lot right at our fingertips. And the reason I'm saying that is that when we think about the history of photography, how many years back was that when the first camera was used? It wasn't very long ago. And what did people do to record history before that? Well, when you go way back to the beginning, we have cave paintings and forward, right? But painters, if we didn't have the records, the visual records that painters have created for us, we would have lost big chunks of our world history. So I encourage you all to take time to go to galleries and showings, any kind of art that you can look at, and go and really examine it. See what you're responding to when you see something or down a row of 10 pieces of art and you are drawn to the third one to the left. Why are you drawn to that piece of art? Study it, ask yourself, go inside and see what is it that's appealing to you about that. And you might find some interesting answers. You might find some interesting subject matter that might encourage you to do something you hadn't done before. I'm going to just go over, so that's my first suggestion to all of you. And my second suggestion is never stop looking at light. Might sound like a stupid thing to say, but we wouldn't have photography without light, right? And there's all kinds of light: direct light, indirect light, backlight, soft light, hard light, specular light. There's so many kinds of light, and lighting is what creates the interest and the zap and the zing to an image. When I used to very often do my judging, we're sitting in a dark room with actual physical prints that are turned around on a Lazy Susan. The title is stated, and then the human mind is taking that title and saying, whoa, what could that be? What is that going to be about? So there's an anticipation of the title of that piece of art to what then you're visually going to see. So when you go and look at art, see how things are titled and see, first of all, what does that entice from your subconscious, from your creativity, from your right brain side, from your feelings. And it's very important, in my opinion, that you're aware of those things and allow those voices to talk to you. It's very important. I'm going to do a couple just really basic things here, which I hope I do not offend any of you, because I don't know the level of your history with cameras or with art, and I don't know how basic or how much of a beginner or a seasoned professional any of you are. There's just a few things I'd like to go over that are tools that I use all the time. Now I've been doing it so long, I don't carry it with me necessarily, but I want to first of all bring up the rule of thirds. Most of you have probably heard of it, but if you haven't, jot it down and go to Google later when you have a minute and look up the rule of thirds. I'm just going to read here for a second. The rule of thirds is a guideline for both artists and photographers. It says if you divide your composition into thirds, either vertically or horizontally, I did a little one here so I could hold this in front of my face for a second, right? You divide your composition into thirds. It can go vertically or horizontally. Am I holding it so you can see it all the way? Can you see it all the way?
We're not seeing your
Yes. You're not seeing my visual?
We're just seeing your
Turn
name.
me on for a second.
no.
Oh, is there a way that we can do that? Just for a few minutes? Thanks.
You need to start. You need to restart your video, which is the camera in the bottom.
Oh, here, I can do it. I think I can.
You can.
No, I can't. It just says ask.
You.
No, it says ask to start video. So that's all I can do. So down at the bottom.
You turned me off also. It says the host has turned you off.
Right. I'm trying to turn everybody off except Leah. And then after we get going, we'll also turn off the video cameras for myself and for Rodney. But so right now we need Leah back on so she can show us what she wants to show us. And everybody else will have their video off for the time being because of the bandwidth issue. Okay, so Leah,
Are you ready for me now?
Yeah, down at the bottom, you should have a choice of clicking on your video to turn it back on again. It probably has a little red line across it now. Looks like a movie camera. Do you see it?
I
in the
don't
lower
see
left.
that. I don't see that on my screen.
Lower left.
Lower left.
One's a microphone.
Oh, start video. Is that what I click on?
Yeah.
Okay, I see it. Yes, with the diagonal red line. Okay, start video. Okay.
That's
There we
it.
go.
There
Now,
I am.
if you hold
Okay, I
something
see
in,
it now.
if you hold
I'm back.
something,
Okay, hooray. Yeah.
okay, now
Okay, so I'm
if
gonna
you
start
hold,
again. All right, here we go.
if you hold,
Now,
exactly.
there we go. About
There we
right
go.
there? Is that
Yes,
good?
we,
I'm looking at the image. Okay, the rule of thirds is a guideline for both artists and photographers. It says that you can divide your composition into thirds, either vertically or horizontally, and then place focal areas, the place of the focal areas of your scene and the meeting points of them. You will get a more pleasing arrangement and layout for your composition. And what I call those are PowerPoints. So vertically, where those lines intersect, there's obviously 4 of them, or a horizontal composition, if your main subject is in that quadrant, in that some part of it is touching that little circle, that intersection, you've got a stronger composition. So go when you can to the internet and read a little bit more about rule of thirds, okay? That's a real basic thing. The other thing you're going to help is hear me talking about light a lot tonight is cropping. And you might say, well, what is that big, cardboard or a strap board or something? What kind of a board that's an L? And I really prefer that you create a black one or just get a black mat board and cut an L out of it. And then when you're looking at your image, you take your dominant eye. For myself, it's my right eye. That's the eye that I look through my camera. So I close my left eye. I take my piece of art and I move that cropper around depending on what I want to do with it, which side, what's more powerful, what area of the image am I keeping, or is it powerful the way I photographed it? Okay, so this is a very simple tool. Anybody can make one of these in 2 minutes and make it black, not white, because your eye will be, if it's bright and white, your eye is going to be distracted to go to that. In any artistic image, our eyes are attracted to the highest amount of contrast. We have contrast in any image, that's where your eye goes. Okay, so now I'm going to get personal with myself, with you. I happen to just grab an image of myself with my now late husband on our engagement portrait with a dog and a horse, and that's, part of our story. But anyway, if you blur your eyes out of focus on any image, okay, you blur your eyes out of focus, and then you turn it upside down to where the image is, does it still work? Where are your eyes going? What is the area of contrast? Are your eyes attracted? So it's a very simple exercise to do. And if you're looking at an image online on the computer, obviously just use your tool where you can swivel your image, blur your eyes out of focus, and see where your eye is drawn to. Where is it attracted to? And that will help you with creating compositions that work and finding areas that are not serving the image well. Okay, I hope you're following me on that. And that's what I wanted to share to get started with. Just some real basic rules, but very important ones. Okay.
yeah.
So now
great.
I'm gonna, yes, I can, or you can do it for me, Louise. Turn me off.
Turn you off.
And we can
Okay.
get started with.
I'm going to turn you off
Turn my image off. Turn me off.
I will.
And start the images. And I've written notes.
Okay. And so Rodney's going to share his screen.
Yes, indeed. Okay, did you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Okay, this is our October digital evaluation. And we start off with the pictorial section. And the first image is entitled Beach Umbrella Blues.
Okay, I'm going to make one comment about titles. Again, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, but titles create interest. So don't take titles lightly, especially if you're going to compete with your imagery. They create interest. They can be fun. It can be funny. It can be create intrigue. It can make you want to look, right? If somebody says, here's the title of an image before they show it to you, now your interest hopefully is piqued and perked and you want to look, right? Be simple, understated. You want to leave the viewer wanting more. Like the photograph, if you've ever photographed 2 people in an embrace and a kiss, the lip lock moment doesn't have as much interest as before the lips touch. If you think about it, and you've seen still photography, video is a whole different animal, but in still photography, there's much more energy in a kiss before the lips actually touch each other. So I'm thinking in terms of titles, sort of being similar to that, and be very, very careful with your titles. So Beach Umbrella Blues got my interest. I love the title because not only does it say what it is, but it's a little bit playful. I'm looking at the triangulation of the composition. If you get rid of in your mind's eye the 5 beach umbrellas, and you just look at the triangles of tone, the left triangle of the foreground, the triangle, it's not quite a triangle, but the water space and then the sand space. You have a point of juncture there where they come together, and it's almost at a PowerPoint. So if you can, now this is always a trick when because I have not photographed this image, the maker, if I said step a little bit to your left, he might go off the cliff. He or she might go off of a cliff. So I can never, I'm never, going to say that, but I might make a suggestion. In many cases, if I say, if the maker had done this or that, it might be an absolute total impossibility. Okay. So I'm just going to come from a perspective of what are the possibilities? I like the fact that you used a shallow depth of field on the foreground. That brought me back into the images. And the only thing I would say in a detriment to the image is it's weak storytelling wise. Storytelling is one of the most important aspects of print critique. That's one of your most important things that you'll be using as far as when you're not only the title, but the storytelling capacity of the image itself. So because this is a little bit of a jumble, I appreciate the umbrellas and the title to the blue umbrellas. And 5 is a nice uneven number, usually works better than even. But the jumble of the people and the different clothing, etc., it doesn't hold as much weight as something else might have. Okay, let's go to next.
Is the score for that?
Do I scroll or do you?
You give
Rodney?
the score. You give the score.
I do the scroll. Oh, I'm the score. I'm sorry, I forgot the score. Yes,
Yeah.
7. I gave it a 7.
Okay, thank you. Autumn.
Okay. On autumn, the rule of thirds here is if you look at the tree, the yellow tree in the foreground, at the base of that yellow is just about at one of those PowerPoints. So it holds the image together. This is a good example of composition that I think is nicely designed and organized. The fact that those cypress trees that are vertical into the space and into the blue space of the sky interrupt and create more interest in the panel of sky that's showing from the upper right. There's almost like a funnel effect that goes to the yellow tree, if you can see that. It brings the eye, of course, the red on the lower right is almost a complementary color. If you know your color wheel, which also as an artist you should know, almost a complementary color to the yellow, even though purple is really the complementary. It juxtaposes it and it holds it. And then the horizontal line of the fence in the background also holds it. I really enjoyed this image for all those reasons. I commend the maker on seeing that, and I gave this a score of 8. Next.
Fatherly advice.
Here's a good example for me, for you to take your eyes out of focus and blur your focus to see, squint your eyes and see where the brightest area of the image is. It's a really good example, in my opinion, of that the brightest area of the image is where the maker wants us to look. The story is right there with dad and child, right? He's giving him some fatherly advice, which I think it's a very handsome title to this image. It works well. The brightest area that when I squinted my eyes down, the brightest area that bothered me, that if I had to critique it, is the small area behind the father's left ankle. Now you might say, well, that is such a small thing. What's a big deal about that little small space of brightness? It takes my eye away from where I want to look, where the maker wants me to look. So with capacity of Photoshop or whatever else you can do, if that had been, the sand tones had been brought up from where the father's feet are into that space and brought across to just below his knee, you wouldn't have that bright spot that my eye keeps jumping over to, that little spot right behind the father's left ankle. And it would make the image that much more powerful. Now, if the maker has the capacity in Photoshop to do a little work, the other thing that I would take out is the father's left hand. We know those are his fingers, but they look like little sausages just sticking out of his arm. And these are the kind of things, as a portrait artist, they're just bugaboos. You got to let go. You got to really, really see things. And I know you aren't in control of this moment. You're watching. I'm assuming this is not a posed situation. These people aren't modeling for you. You aren't directing them and telling them where to put what and how to sit, etc. So I understand that this is probably a spontaneous capture, and it's very cute, and I like the story. That's just my suggestions. I also like the fact that the maker included the shoes on the upper right, because they kind of hold interest. You have actually 3 subjects. You have the father, the child, and the shoes. So 3 is always a very powerful number that holds things together. As I mentioned before, usually uneven numbers of subjects is more powerful and will hold an image together more than even numbers. So 3, 5, 7, et cetera. And it just depends on the subject matter. Okay. And I had given this title, this fatherly advice image, a score of 7. Next.
Grubs for breakfast.
That's a fun title. It says what it is with a little bit of humor. I really appreciated the maker's selective focus on this image. Also, for me, I sometimes like to crop pretty tight. And I'm thinking that there's a little more image area that's needed at the top. And it could come in a little bit on the left. That way, where the bird is facing, you always want to give space to where somebody's facing, or if there's movement in the image, where they're moving into. Because if you don't give the space to that moving subject, not that this is a moving subject, but because the bird is turned to the right, you want to make sure to give space on the right side. I really appreciated the grubs for breakfast. I think the cropping aid, play with it, to the maker, play with the cropping and see what feels a little bit more powerful if you take away some of that unwanted or unneeded space. I gave this a score of 8. Next.
Sunflex.
Okay, well, I certainly appreciate the artist, the maker's wherefore and vision on seeing the little sunflecks that are coming through the hat. Seeing light is a big part of what we do. It's kind of fun, and I will have to say that whatever was done in the enhancement area, I'm sorry, for me, the eyes were too scary. Person almost looks possessed. So I think it's been overdone in that area, and I think we should back that off, because it's not even pretty, in my opinion. It's just on the scary side. Especially there's blood vessels showing in the left eye. And again, if you're able to put in kind of color there in the eyes, you should be able to clean up the white of the eye there where the blood vessels are showing. The cropping is a little tight for me. You wouldn't have to necessarily always see all the face, that's true. But the fact that I don't have just a little bit of space below the bottom lip of the woman, I would want to see just a little more. It feels a little too cramped there. Also, on this image, if you squint your eyes out of focus again, where is the brightest area? The top of the hat and the left pane of the background. I appreciate the shallow focus there. Your depth of field is great for that space, but I think I would tone that brightness down a little bit, and then my eye would stay into the image where you want me to look instead. It's a little on the soft side, so I would have sharpened up at least the eye lines, the line of the eyes possibly, and even the gum lines on the teeth. There's just a couple of more suggestions there. I gave this image, the Sunflex, a 7.5. Next.
Sunrise.
Everybody loves to see a sunrise. It's just gorgeous. I would use my cropping tool on this, and I would take, if you look at the image and you look at again, squint your eyes and find the brightest space, it's right in the center, which is a little bit not as interesting. I would have cropped this to a square and lose most of the right side. So if you take your cropper and you take the upper side out and leave a bit of the, I don't know if it's a pier or a bridge or whatever it is, I see a bridge way in the background, but it's much more interesting as a square composition, and there's nothing certainly wrong with square. I used square cameras for many, many, many years, and it's kind of a, for lack of a better word, artsy shape. There's nothing really happening up in that upper right of the frame in the sky area that is making me want to stay there and look at it. So when you tighten that crop, it's much more comfortable, interesting, and solid as an image. I would also suggest that you saturate it a little bit more, being that it's almost a silhouette anyway. Go for that beautiful saturated colors of sunrise. I gave this image called Sunrise a score of 7.5. Next.
South African masked weaver.
Okay, I'm going to make a comment about titles. What I mentioned before, we don't always need to say exactly what it is. I understand that it's a South African masked weaver bird, and you've told us that's what it is. But you really don't need to tell us that, because we are not going to a museum or a zoo here to see, well, what kind of bird is that? We're looking at it as a piece of art. So I just came up, just for fun, I came up with the title, Weaving Away. So you can choose, play a little bit with words, and maybe I'm going to suggest that you find something else that's just open as far as leaving the viewer with weaving away or happy weaving or something, weaving upside down, or play with it and see if you can feel better about something like that. I also feel that there's just too much space on the bottom, so I would crop in a bit from the bottom. You really don't need that. It's not holding the image in any particular way. I do appreciate the fact that you have centered it, and because of the position of the bird and the nest itself and the two twigs that it's hanging from, I like the fact that it's centered. It almost could be a square image. I gave this image South African masked weaver image a score of 8.5. Next.
Perky.
I appreciate the title. I think it's fun, and it is perky. The bird is perky. If you had said hummingbird, I would say, well, yeah, okay, we don't really need to know. We know it's a hummingbird, but perky, that gives me the feeling of what this bird gives me the feeling of. So I think that was nicely selected. I also really appreciated the selective focus on this image, the sharpness, and the gradients in the image. The way the gradients has been, whether it was done in the camera or post-production, it doesn't matter. But I appreciate the gradients, because the darker tones of the lime green in the bottom and around the bird, leaving the lighter areas to the top, it holds the image and keeps it in place, if you will, gives it a base. I would take off a little bit, and cropping wise, I would take off a little bit on the top edge. And I really also wanted to point out that I really appreciated the lines. I don't know if it was done post-production or in the camera, but when the maker snapped this picture, I'm hoping that he or she was appreciating also the diagonal lines of the line of the beak that match the line of the branches, that match the line of the tail. And it's a very nicely designed image for a lot of reasons, and especially for that. Next.
I'm sorry, what was the score on that? I missed it.
8.5.
Thank you. Dream of Sinai.
I appreciate the title of this, Dream of Sinai. It's intriguing. I love the color, the texture. I really appreciate the graphics of it. I think the colors are bold. It makes me want to look. I leaned in and saw the texture. I really examined it and went up and down. And even though, of course, I can't read what the type is, it's intriguing. And so it made me want to look again and think about, I wonder what it says. I wonder what the story is. I really appreciated the intrigue, the texture, the color, and the composition. I didn't feel anything needed to be cropped out or changed out of anything here. The only thing maybe that I might have done is saturate even more, because it's a bold image, and I think it would be safe to go even a little bolder with it. I gave this image, Dream of Sinai, a score of 8.0. Next.
Black Crowned Night Heron.
Well, here we go again with what are we looking at? We don't really need to know what kind of bird it is. It's a piece of art. And what you're doing when you capture it is seeing that art, that artisticness in the scene, in the animal, in the background, etc. So I would just try some other title, maybe even just heron or flight of a heron or taking off or something. Just play with some other titles and come up with something that you don't need to tell us the whole name of the bird. It's not necessary, in my opinion. I really appreciated the maker's use of the sharpness on this image and the shutter speed. Very, very beautifully captured. And the lines of the bird's wings, the way it comes to the front, almost creating a circle. So it holds my eye and I go around and around again and I don't escape. I would take off some of the imagery to the left and even just come in a little bit more on the right. I'm even feeling like using a square crop on this might be very nice. Just don't place the bird totally in the center. Give the bird a little space on the right to fly into. But I really feel that that could be done, and I think it would be more powerful accordingly. So I gave this image titled Black Crowned Heron, Night Heron, a score of 8.0. Next.
Fireweed.
Okay, lovely title, simple, direct, and even though I might not know as a botanist, I'm not a botanist, but I know that red weed in the foreground is fireweed, and it says what it is. I think it's a beautifully captured composition. I think the lighting is bold and beautiful. My eye goes, I love the diagonal line from the lower right into the the lower left into the upper right corner area. And of course, the clouds and the textures and the mountains. The capture is beautifully handled. I would punch the contrast and the saturation just a wee bit more, because I think it's very, very handsomely handled. I don't know if any of you in your club use any vignetting at all, but I would even add just a slight vignette to the lower corners and just slightly on the bottom edge. Not very much. Don't make it obvious that you've done it, but just slightly. And that will give the base of this image even more power, and it'll hold it so that you'll stay, you keep the viewer's eye right where you want in this whole image. You just go round and round into the image, come forward and go back to the mountains, up into the sky, and come back again on that diagonal line. It's really beautifully, the composition is really beautiful. I gave this image titled Fireweed an 8.5. Next.
Mission Life.
Mission Life. Nicely handled with the title, because I really wanted to see, well, what is Mission Life all about? I love the lighting. Obviously, we have either door and or window light coming from the sides, unless you've done a beautiful job of some studio lighting, but it looks to me that somebody has visited a mission and the lighting is coming in from the sides and a little bit on the left as well. So I really appreciate the classic still life and the lighting direction, because I can feel the texture of everything. I can almost reach out and touch that fabric, the chair, the wicker, the wood, the wicker on the table, the things that bothered me. And now this is one of those situations that is probably not controllable, because you're looking possibly through a doorway where you're limited where you can stand. If indeed you are at a mission and you're only looking into a space that you can't walk into and change anything. Had you been able to physically change anything about this still life, it bothers me that I cannot see the bottom of the picture that's sitting behind the chair. The bottom edge of the picture is hidden behind the top rung of the chair back, and it doesn't let that picture rest on the table. I want to go over there and move it. Okay. There's also something else that's behind the chair that's sitting on the table. I think it's a candlestick, but I'm not positive. And that also is not readable to the eye because part of it's blocked. So if you are creating, I love creating still lifes. And if you are creating still lifes, always look for these kinds of details where, if possibly, if you can control them, the placement of your subject is so very important to the balance of this image. If it was controllable and you could put your, you could move that picture to where, or slide the chair over to the right slightly and put it at a little more of an angle so that you saw the bottom of the picture, you would have a much more powerful, a little more controlled, of course, but a much more powerful image. Okay, I gave this image titled Mission Life a score of 8.0. Next.
Pensive pelican.
Okay, pensive pelican. I like the use of the pensive. He is a little pensive, and you have two words that start with P, so that's kind of fun. Pensive pelican. I enjoyed the title. The lighting is lovely. I love the way you can almost reach out and touch those feathers you've got. Because of your lighting quality, you have that beautiful texture of the bird, and I appreciate the fact that you used your selective focus so that the bird stands out and away from that background. If you had kept the background, it is so busy. If you'd kept that background in focus, you would have never been able to separate the pelican from the background. I like the little bit of framing that would place this bird a little bit off center. So I would play with it again, take your little L tool and play with how it feels to crop a little bit off the left, even a little bit off the top, maybe even try a square and put him slightly to the left of the frame in that square. I think it would just be really nice to play with the power of framing to see how it changes when you do that. The title, this image titled Pensive Pelican, I gave it a score of 8.0. Next.
Verdurous drifter.
I love the title, and I think the composition is really lovely. There's so much movement in this. I just kept going back and forth and up and down with the way the reflection, I'm assuming, of a palm leaf that's hanging over the water that's reflecting, gives a path, a green path, if you will, to the swimmer. And I think it's lovely. I appreciate the sharpness. I would even, because it's such a playful image, I would even saturate a little bit more. I'm appreciating that diagonal line that the palm tree or palm frond is creating. I'm assuming it's a palm frond, and that it's meeting, and the lines are going both in and out, and the fish is swimming along the line. If there is any more sharpening that you could do, that's the one thing I would suggest. I don't know if it's possible that there's any more detail in the pectoral fins of the fish, because it's just bold white. I don't know if there's any information in your file that would lend itself there, but if possible, I would pull that out. So on this image called Virtuous Drifter, I gave it a score of 7.5. Next.
Just skimming along.
Beautifully titled. I really, really appreciate this beautiful capture. Well, a very fabulous choice of shutter speed. Your sharpness, your focus is right on. You have a beautiful composition in that that bird has a place to fly into. Little less space on the right and more space on the left. I would even possibly play with the focus a little bit and come in as a little bit tighter so that the power of the bird is even more powerful if you tighten it up a little bit from the top and right. I think it would even be more powerful. The title is beautifully too, just skimming along instead of telling me it's a gray heron or whatever type of bird it is. A blue heron, excuse me, I think that's what it is. I'm not a bird expert, but I think it's a blue heron, giant blue heron. Anyways, you didn't need to tell me that. And I love the fact he is skimming, and I love the wingtips just touching and dragging in the water. It's beautifully handled. Really appreciate that. I gave this image just skimming along a score of 9.0. Next.
Hummingbird in the morning sun.
Okay, here we go with a title challenge again. And I know I'm harping, but it's part of what I do. So please appreciate the fact that, again, you don't need to tell me it's a hummingbird. And if any photographer is really, really cognizant of lighting and time of day, almost all of us can read, for whatever reason, we know this is the morning sun and not the afternoon sun. What is that difference? I'm not even sure if I could put my finger on it. But what about a title like Ruby-Throated Morning or something that's not telling me it's a hummingbird? We all know it's a hummingbird. On the far right side, that little twig that's sticking into the frame is really bothering me. So I don't think you need the ones at the bottom. And again, I don't know your Photoshop capabilities, but the twigs that are dropped out of focus doesn't matter so much on the bottom. Obviously, the one coming vertically we need to hold him in place. But the one on the far, that little bit of twig that's sticking into the frame on the right, definitely could be cropped out or taken out with Photoshop. And I think just overall, the image could be tightened from the top and from the right. It is a beautiful capture, and I'll appreciate the color. A little more saturation, why not play with it a little bit? And sharpness is beautiful. This image titled Hummingbird in the Morning Sun, I gave it an 8.5. Next.
Green heron enjoying a snack.
Okay, what a fun image this is. And here we go with the title. Do we really need to know it's a green heron? We see that he's having a snack, that's for sure. So I was playing a little bit with ideas for a different title, Snack and Slurp or Jab and Slurp. Be playful, have fun with how you're using the English language. Words are very powerful. And so play with it a little bit as to letting me not know what it is I'm going to see by being playful with your words, or serious if it's a serious image, whatever. In this case, playful with your words, snack and slurp. Then before I see the image, oh my gosh, what am I going to be seeing? Snack and slurp, this is going to be fun, right? So make me want to see more, intrigue me by using your words as PowerPoints. Also, I really appreciated the colors in this composition. Of course, those gorgeous yellow legs and the yellow on his eye and his beak. And then the way, of course, the reflections play with the water and the little, where the little fish came out of the water, the rings of the movement, all the lines. It's just an intriguing image. And I keep going around and around. My eye does not escape. I wouldn't mind tightening up just a little bit on the right and down from the top. Again, play with your cropping and see how much more powerful it is when we see a little bit less around the subject. Okay, let's see. The title of this image was Green Heron Enjoying a Snack. I gave this a score of 8.5. Next.
One last look.
Well, I happen to be a horse crazy woman, so I appreciated it right away, but kind of trying to take the personal thing out of it, right? I really appreciate the lovely light on this. Great lighting, great attention. The fact that we have the eyes of the horse looking right at the viewer, and there's attention there because those ears are up and that horse is communicating one way or another. I will say that I would have appreciated a fine line on the right because of the angle, the diagonal line of the edge of the barn there, or the open stall, because it's leaning and it's tipped. Oh, I do see a line there now. I didn't see it earlier on the image that I saw earlier. There is a line there. Pardon me. I'm seeing it now. But when I first saw it, I didn't see the line running up to the top. Now, the other thing, and I don't know if you've already played with this and tipped the image on purpose or if it was captured this way, I would suggest taking the image and tipping it a little bit. So it would change your crop indeed a little bit. But if you take that diagonal, slightly diagonal to the right line of the edge of the barn or the edge of the stall opening and tip it to vertical, see how it feels a little different. This may be the more powerful way, but I think to the maker, just play with it, swivel it a little bit and see what you like more. It might have a different feeling for the horse's face. You know, it might be tipped a little bit more to the right, excuse me, to the left. One last look, I scored this at 8.5. Next.
Pause that refreshes.
Pause that refreshes. I appreciate the comfortable title of this. It's a nice image, but I hate to say it, I'm sorry to the maker. It feels a bit of vanilla, if you will. It's not chocolate, it's not vanilla, it's not strawberry, it's not pomegranate. It's kind of just vanilla. It's there, but it's because part of, for me, is the eye of the pelican. Can only just see the edge of the eye. We don't really see enough of it. Now, I know in cases of situations like this where you're photographing wild animals, they aren't going to do what you're, just because you said, hey, turn a little bit to the right here, buddy. He's not listening to you. So it's that magic thing that as photographers get to do when we're capturing something where we don't have any control, is to wait, watch, wait. Maybe that one little teeny tip of the head or something, or maybe, you know what, we'll snap it anyway. We'll look at it later, and maybe it doesn't have the power that you thought it had when you looked through the lens earlier. Just a nice, comfortable image, but it doesn't have any power to me as far as interest, storytelling. He's just sitting there. It's a little bit blah, and I hate to say boring, but it's just simple and not as interesting as a lot of the other images I've been looking at. So this image, one last look, I scored it. Where did I put it? I'm sorry, 8.5. No, that isn't right. I was on the wrong line. Pardon me. That was 6.5, not 8.5. 6.5.
Speed run.
Okay, love the title. It certainly suits the image. When I heard the title before I looked at the image, it was like, oh, what am I going to look at? I'm excited now. This is a powerful image. I would suggest that you even saturate a little bit more and punch the color, punch the contrast a bit. You maintain, if you can do that and maintain your details in the white areas, that would be best, of course, because it is a very powerful image. I might play with cropping just a tiny bit. Wouldn't lose too much on the left. Of course, that animal, that jet needs a place to fly into, so don't get too tight on it. But maybe you don't need quite as much blue around the top and on the right side. This speed run, this image titled Speed Run, I gave it a score of 8.0. Next.
Resplendent Quetzal.
What a lovely title for a lovely image. Just really beautiful, beautifully handled. I love the selective focus that the maker has chosen to use. I would, if you squint your eye on this image, my eye goes right to that white clump of moss on the far right side, right on the edge of the image. And I would crop that out. I would really highly suggest that you crop that out. It's going to change your, you'll have a little bit taller, narrower image, but I don't think that matters. And if you can take the burn tool a little bit and take that on the left side of the image, right across from the bird's beak, sort of a blue area that's selective focus out. But when I squint my eye down, it's quite bright. And so I would take that down in hue and tone so that it's a little bit darker and it won't pull my eye to the edge of the frame. But I really appreciated this beautiful image titled Resplendent Quetzal, and I gave it a score of 8.5. Next.
Peer reflections.
Peer reflections. It's a handsome title for a handsome, solid feeling image. It feels very stable to me. Obviously, cement and vertical lines and wood, they all are impressed in our psyche for powerful and stability and safe. It's not going anywhere. So I appreciated that. Now, if you look at the fact that it's 4 cement columns, I am wondering, and I was playing with it on the with my tool, my little cropping tool. If you take the far right column out, you end up with 3 vertical columns, cement columns rather than 4. I'm not saying that it is better, but I was playing with it to see if I liked it better, if it felt better. The other thing I will make a comment on, and I just made a comment a little bit ago in terms of waiting. When people or subjects aren't posing for us, and we're not art directing them to sit there, do that, turn this way, put their hand there. We're just looking at 2 people on a pier. One of them that's seated is fishing, obviously fishing pole, and the other one looks like he's just, pulling up his trousers or something. If you will just, as a photographer, instead of just grabbing that image, go ahead and grab one, but you're there and they're there. And what's going to happen if you wait another 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute? Just wait and see if that person maybe is going to step to the left, and you would be able to see the person that's seated. Wait and watch. Just wait and watch. Be patient, be very cognizant, be very aware, and maybe your position based on where they're standing, if you slide a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, you have a slightly different perspective. You might have more information that you're needing, visually speaking, for it to make more sense instead of the way it's been captured here as far as the 2 people are concerned. So again, a lot of photography does really require a lot of patience, doesn't it? So just be aware and be cognizant and use that as an exercise. So this image titled Peer Reflections, I gave it the score of 7.5. Next.
Roseate spoonbill.
I'm not seeing the image yet, so I'm just waiting here. Maybe it's on my end. There it is. Okay, I see it now. Rosette spoonbill. Again, you're telling me the name of the animal, and I appreciate that. However, maybe something different for your title. Make it a little more intriguing. Stretch in the sun, stretching in the sun, something else other than, pink stretch in the sun, something that's going to say to me before I see the image, oh, what's it going to, something that's other than just telling me the name of the animal. Okay. I know that you can't control these things. I really appreciate the maker seeing this beautiful backlighting and this opportunity to grab the wings in that instant where you clicked your shutter to show off that gorgeous backlighting, and the colors and the textures of the feathers. It's what makes this image so beautiful. And of course, you cannot control that spoonbill and how the tip of the head is turned. You can just barely see an indication of the eye socket, or that the feathers there's a crease there where the eye is. Of course, if you're watching that animal, he's doing whatever he or she is doing, you might get another opportunity where the eyes always have it. So keep watching, keep being careful. And if you're lucky and you have a motor drive, or you're really good with your shutter finger clicking away, that 1 or 2 or 3 or 12 frames, there might be one little magic one where, if you are clever in Photoshop and you can borrow the tip of the head from another image and put it on this one, you'd have a more powerful image by having the eye involved, because that is with any animal or any human, that is generally the powerful points is the eyes have it. I gave this image the Rosette spoonbill the title of Rosette spoonbill, a title excuse me, a score of 9.0. Thank you. Next.
Teresa.
Okay. What a fun image. I so personally know this woman, and or you're at a competition and watching and you happen to know her name is Teresa, but I don't think it's so important. It's not such a personal image. It's an action shot. And what is she doing? She's surfing. So maybe some kind of surfing lingo for the title. Kicked it, or almost getting air, or I don't know all the surfing terms and lingo, but come up with something else other than just her name, because it didn't necessarily intrigue me when I heard Teresa. I know I'm probably going to be looking at a woman, but this is so much more exciting than Teresa. It could be a woman sitting at a desk, right, in an office, but this is way more exciting than that. I really, really appreciated the S curves. It's a horizontal S curve, but if you look at her arms, it actually kind of create almost wings. And then the curve of her left arm going into across where her head and neck is and out to her tush and down her thigh, you have this beautiful S curve running through the frame, which really, really holds it so powerful. I really appreciated this. I wouldn't mind a little more saturation, pop that color, a little more contrast, something like that. If you want to play with it, I don't think I would crop this at all. All of that splashing water looks exciting, and I love the textures. Just a really, really fabulous image. For this image titled Teresa, I gave it a score of 9.5. Excuse me, 9.0. I can't give it a 9.5. 9.0. Thank you. Next.
Skimboarding.
Here's another wow image. Oh my goodness. When I heard the title skimboarding, okay, all right, we know what skimboarding is. That wasn't exciting to me, but the image, oh my gosh, talk about exciting. That's a fabulous action shot. So what about a title? Oh no, or a split second, or some other catchy title that's going to get my attention, like wowza. And then when the image comes up, double wowza, right? Now, I would say that I would go a little bit more crop wise. Don't really need all that right hand side of the frame. Your power in this image is obviously the skim border and the board, and the fact that his foot has left the board and he's heading down, and we're hoping he's not going to crash and burn, right? But I think it's a fabulously exciting image and a great action capture. Great choice of shutter speed and f-stop. I love all the textures in it. But again, I don't really feel we need all that space on the left and possibly bottom. I play with your cropper and see what feels more powerful, and maybe possibly lose some of that bottom and the right side of the image. So that for this image titled Skimboarding, I gave it an 8.5 for a score. Next.
Cheetah siblings.
There's the image. Okay, now I see it. Cheetah siblings. Okay. Again, I think almost anybody in the world knows that these three cats are cheetahs. It's pretty apparent that they're siblings, although that's not even necessary. I was playing with title ideas and something like laps of love or licks of love, something you don't have to tell me they're cheetahs. So, but I just would really appreciate the composition. I love the way it's been cropped. I wouldn't change the cropping at all. I would bump the contrast just a little bit, and the fact that it's almost a monochromatic image with all those beige tones, the exception of the red tongues, the red and pink tongues, is just really, really powerful. Those three faces just capture me, and I'm staying in that image. Appreciate the makers' depth of field choices and the crop as well. I really, really like how it's cropped. I gave this image Cheetah Siblings a score of 8.0. Next.
Coral Beauty.
Indeed. This is the Coral Beauty. Absolutely gorgeous image. It's so striking. You can reach out and touch the texture of those petals. appreciate the fine lines, the gentleness, the caress of the petals as they flutter sort of inside and out, and the change of the lighting from the top to the bottom. I really appreciated the maker seeing that light and letting it shine, if you will. I would tone down just a little bit of the upper area right at the top edge of the frame. There's a light area of green. And as I squint down my eye goes back up to that image and that area and wants to escape out of the top of the image. And to keep the viewer's eye into the image, I would tone that down, and that would really be a fairly easy thing to do. I don't even mind that the lower petal is touching the frame edge. It's kind of almost, it locks it down and gives it a base to hang on to. It's like resting there. I gave this image Coral Beauty a score of 9.0. Next.
Pismo Mist.
What a fun capture. Isn't light fabulous, and what fog and light can do together? I really appreciated this image. Although I don't need to know necessarily that it's Pismo, and it's maybe palms in the mist. Something simple like that. I don't need to know the location. And I particularly really don't need those housetops in the bottom. They aren't, for me, they aren't doing anything for the image at all. So I was cropping, in my mind's eye, I was cropping out the bottom where you see the housetops, because all you need is those palm trees. And also if you can crop so that you don't see any of the power lines that go in across the green trees on the right-hand side, all you need is sort of almost a panoramic image of the 1, 2, 3, 6 palm trees. And maybe even come down on the top, but you need all that much fog up there. There isn't anything happening. I wouldn't crop down too tight to the trees, because that's the beauty of the image itself, is the mist developing behind and just misting behind the palm trees. I really appreciated the viewers seeing that. So for this image titled Pismo Mist, I gave it a score of 8.0. Next.
Heritage Flight.
Beautifully titled. I really appreciated this image. I really appreciated the choice of the title. I think it's very fitting to what we're looking at. I don't know if it's a composition in the computer or if you were so fortunate to get this composition as a capture. I don't know that. I wasn't watching this air show, but wow, it's fabulous. If you have composted it and put those two planes in the juxtaposition where they are, hooray for you. Great positioning of those two airplanes. And that's a good use of tools for sure. I really appreciated the title. I might even saturate just a tinge more. Why not? And they have space to fly into. You may play with the crop a little bit on the top. I don't know if we need all that much sky up above, but play with it a little bit and see what you think. With this image titled Heritage Flight, I gave it a score of 9.0. Next.
Sunset.
Okay. I think anybody worldwide who looked at this image would say, well, that's a nice sunset. What a beautiful sunset. Look at those colors. Look at those textures. Do you really need to tell us it's a sunset? Again, play with possibility of words. Words are so powerful. 2 plus 2, we've got 2 couples there, one couple walking and one couple seated. They are sort of the base along with the sand that's running along horizontal bottom of your image. And so that gives the sky and sea a place to be, if you will. It gives a base to the image, but maybe play with the fact that you've got 2 couples there. 2 plus 2 equals exceptional, or I don't know, that's what I was just playing with ideas. I really, really appreciate the viewers seeing all these fabulous textures in the background along the horizon line with those shapes of the clouds, and then you've got the wispy clouds, the mare's tails, and the textures at the very top. So I wouldn't crop anything out of this. I would maybe go with a little more saturation. Why not play with it? Punch it a little bit, a little more contrast possibly. Keep it as a full image. I think it's a very powerful image. I gave this image titled Sunset a score of 9.0. Next.
So that concludes the pictorial category, and we now advance to the monochrome category. The first image is titled American Avocet.
Okay, here we go again. We know it's a bird, and I would want to make one comment on everything that is monochromatic. We're talking about one color. So what are we doing with that one color? We have the options on adjusting hue, tone, shade, and tint. And all of those are very powerful tools. And with the advent of digital photography today, it's pretty amazing that we can just go into those tools and play with sliders and contrast, etc. And I think that the maker has done a very nice job of playing with, if indeed they've been played with at all, on this American Avocet bird. I think possibly, again, playing with the title, Ideal Lagoon Afternoon, or something other than just the name of the bird. It would be a little bit more alluring. Lagoon Afternoon, something like that. It's a lovely capture. It's sharp. I can see all the texture of those feathers and the beautiful rings and rings around the bird in the water, and the reflection is gorgeous. I gave this American Avocet a score of 8.5. Next.
Coachwork Excellence.
I loved the title because it made me think, what is this coach work? What am I going to be looking at? Excellence. Well, it certainly is excellent. I think the title is well selected because it's such a wonderful composition. I commend the maker at the beautiful composition of the balance, the lines, the direction, the diagonals, the arches of the four. I don't know what to call them because I'm not technical about thing. I don't even know if this is a car or a boat, but parts, but the four hoses there, and then the arched line at the bottom right corner. I appreciate where you cropped everything and where you placed the different shapes within the image. I think the composition is very powerful, and I love the appreciation. I have an appreciation for all the details in all the tonalities. You don't have any, even the white areas, you have to really appreciate that. My love of photography started in the black and white darkroom, so I really, really appreciate this image. And I gave this Coachwork Excellent image a score of 9.0. Next.
Air Show Superstar.
Well, that's beautifully titled. Wowza, look at that. I love the fact that it's an upside down composition that works. It works in all the details that are in there, all the details of the texture of the airplane, all the different grayscale, the line of the clouds and or the exhaust from the airplane, whatever's happening there. He has space to fly into. I love the fact that I could just see the head of the pilot. There is somebody in that plane and he's not falling out yet. I think it's a fabulous one. It has a lot of tension in it mainly because he's upside down, but I love the tension that's being created because of the diagonal line in the composition going from the upper left corner through the airplane to the lower right corner. It's a beautiful diagonal line that's used to hold that composition in place. I don't think I would crop anything out. You might play with just a tiny bit and look at the lower right and the lower edge and the right edge coming in just a tad, but I wouldn't lose too much of it if you're going to play with it at all. This image titled Airshow Superstar, I gave it a title of 9.0. Next.
San Clemente Sunset.
San Clemente Sunset. Okay. It's an okay title. It's nothing too exciting because we pretty much know that's a sunset. Do I need to be told of that? Now, I was playing with the idea of the one thing that was bothering me is the fact that the far left palm tree, the tall palm tree, the small and short palm tree is overlapping it and the two trunks are coming together. I know that if you moved your camera angle from that, you would lose the position of the clock tower between the other palm trees on the right-hand side. So it's one of those situations where you kind of split. I'm splitting hairs, and I'm thinking, I think the viewer made a better choice of leaving the clock tower in between those palm trees rather than not having the two trees on the far left being combined, if you will. That was the only thing that was kind of bothering me a little bit, because if you move the camera position, then the clock tower is not where you want it. So I appreciated the textures here, the silhouettes at the bottom, the textures in the water, the sand, the clouds. It's a lovely image. You might not be missing too much if you cropped in a little bit on the top and a little bit on the left edge. For this image titled San Clemente Sunset, I gave it a score of 8.0. Next.
Hallows Eve.
Ah, yes, Hallows Eve, beautifully titled, and the lighting on this one, wowza, wowza, wowza. I commend the maker on seeing this scene and stopping and capturing it. I just think it's fabulous. The power of the standing person there, the fact that there is a standing person there, I don't know whether that was a posed person or they just happened to be there and you got lucky, but I commend the luckiness and the vision of the maker to see that. If that was someone that you could control, you might have had them either walking away or towards the camera or legs separated so there's a little bit of movement there. Might have been a little bit more intriguing, but again, if you just captured it because you got fortunate and there was someone already standing there, fabulous anyway. The only thing, if again, ability in the computer with your Photoshop talents, if those cars could be released and taken out of the image, I think it would be even that much more powerful. But I love the title. It's well situated, and I commend the maker for seeing this fabulous image and the feeling of that tree, whatever kind of tree that is, and the way it's been trimmed to create this kind of spooky looking, shape. I really, really liked it. So for this image, Hallows Eve, I gave it a score of 9.0. Next.
Ready to show.
Okay, I think you remember from when Louise read about me and that I'm an equestrian, so I can't help myself on this one. This horse doesn't look ready to show. I'm sorry. This the title doesn't suit the image to me from my way of seeing. The horse looks almost asleep and bored and ears down, eyes down. I can't make out the eyes, just the eyelashes across the eyes. So I don't have any interest or light in the eyes. I don't particularly like the way it's cropped. I appreciate the textures of the white horse, the mane, and then the braided mane and the forelock not being braided. I can see that the horse has been, if you will, dressed to show, but it doesn't feel exciting to me. It's as far as a capture goes, be looking for something that is a little more exciting, maybe. If you want something that's sweet and solemn and quiet and lovely, that would be okay. But to me, this is just kind of boring. It's another kind of vanilla feeling kind of image. Sorry to say that, but that's my honest feeling. Keep watching that animal, and maybe, I don't know if it's somebody you know that has this animal or if it's just a capture as you're walking past. See if we can get some ears up. When a horse has its ears up and its eyes are lit up, that is way more exciting than this horse is not necessarily ready to show. So I don't feel the title suited it very well. I gave this image titled Ready to Show a score of 6.5. Next.
Sword fight.
Okay, now that got my attention. The title Sword Fight, beautifully titled, playing with words and playing with what those animals are doing. Wonderful title. I'm a little teeny bothered by the pixelization in the background. It distracts my eye a little bit as far as that goes. So if you don't know how much control or abilities you have in Photoshop or with any other tools that you might be using to remove the feeder edge that's showing on the far right side, I think it would be that much more powerful. You really don't need that little loop, those two little loops of shape. That's the hummingbird feeder edge where they would sit. I think the lighting's fabulous, and it is indeed a sword fight. Great choice of shutter speed and juxtaposition of the two birds. Fabulous. this image titled Sword Fight, I gave it a score of 8.0. Next.
Glistening lily.
Okay, that's very nicely titled because if you look very carefully, it is glistening. It is just a gorgeous capture, and appreciate the lighting on this. Beautifully, beautifully done. Nice title. The only thing that was too heavy for me is the shadow area of the large loop of the petal that's closest to the camera, coming towards the camera, because there is absolutely no detail in that. It is solid black. It is very, very heavy, weighty wise, visually weighty. And so if it looks as if this may have been lit with a controlled lighting source, if you were in charge of that, then I would pop some fill light into the edge of that, the underside of that lily edge, and then the lily petal coming towards the camera, and then it wouldn't be quite so heavy. But because it is totally solid black and it's such a large area, it weights the front edge of the image down, and it pulls me down, and I want to see a little detail in there. So if that's possible, great. And if it wasn't possible, then it's something to just look for when you're looking through the camera. Always be thinking of ahead to these things and play with it. Even if you carry a white, if this was just natural sunlight, carry a white card with you in your camera bag, and you just can hold it with one hand and find your angle of light to hit that white card, or a small reflector, and pop some detail into that shadow area, and you'd have a different image. For this image titled Glistening Lily, I gave it a score of 7.5. Next.
First light.
First light. This was fun. I see the fact that somebody was up at dawn and it's the first light, but the first thing I saw when I looked at this was the fact that it's wow, the subject on the right, the condos or whatever we want to call those units where all these people are staying, obviously. I came up with the word beehive bound as a title. It's like sitting in a little cubicles of a beehive, you know, and that's what it came to my mind. I really appreciate the viewers seeing these fabulous textures. I love the graphics of the image. I probably would have taken some of the image off on the far right. Do you really need that much space of those little cubicles? Because it's so weighty and so busy, and the left side of the composition is so open and light. I would just suggest maybe play with the crop a little bit and see what you see out of it that's a little different than what we have there. I gave this image titled First Light a score of 7.0. Next.
Lines and shadows.
Okay, lines and shadows, nicely titled, because that's what I'm looking at, lines and shadows. We have some textures too that I'm really appreciating. I think if this is a negative image, and I really appreciate the graphics in this image. I think it's really, really well, the composition is really, really well done. I appreciate the way the base of the image with those horizontal lines running down and out, but then across the diagonal corner, if you will, the right corner of the image. It really holds it in place. And where you place that stanchion in the center that's vertical with the lines going off of it, I think it's beautifully placed. The lines, the composition, the way my eye goes around and inside and back and forth on this image, I really appreciate, again, the graphics of it. It's very, very nice. This image titled Lines and Shadows, I gave it a score of 8.5. Next.
White rhino.
Wow, what a fabulous image. What a fabulous capture. Maybe play with the title, sipping, or horned sip, or sipping with horn, or play with your words, you know, just see if you can come up with something else. All of us on the planet would know that this is a rhinoceros. Whether it's important, if we know if it's a white rhino or not, I don't know that that's so important. It's the image. You are creating art here. I do not know that I feel so excited about the right-hand side of the frame, however. I think play with the crop on this. I was cropping it and playing with the shape. And I think it's a much more powerful image when it's cropped square. It's a little more space on the right side than the left and come down on from the top edge. I don't think you need all that sky, because the powerful image, the powerful part of this image is the rhinoceros and the reflection of the rhinoceros, of course. If you would come down on exposure a little bit, I think it would be better, because on the right side of the animal, it's just so hot, lighting wise, that it could come down with your exposure. I think it would be better. So play with the crop on it and see what you think. I appreciate the capture. This image titled White Rhino, I gave it an 8.5. Next.
Vigilant.
Wonderful choice of title. I really appreciate that she is indeed vigilant. There's a mom being very protective of that cute little cub. So I do appreciate the title. I think I would crop in a little tighter. I don't think we need all that much space around the mother. The eyes have it in this way, in this image, and that's where the power of this image is right in the face of the mother. So play with your crop and come down on the top and maybe a little bit on the right side. I really appreciate the textures in this image and the tonal details, the different tones of the grasses and the animal itself, and really enjoyed that image called Vigilant. I gave it a score of 8.5. Next.
Kindred Spirits.
Indeed, Kindred Spirits, beautifully done, beautifully handled. I can feel the texture of that cat. I can feel those little whiskers, and the eye is gorgeously captured. The fact that that person that's wrapping her or his hand around the animal is lovely. I really appreciate all the textures, and I can feel that cat as I look at it, and I can feel the feeling of the cat appreciating the person loving on it and the person loving the cat. So that's really lovely. The only thing that I will say about this image is that the tonality of the sleeve coming in from the upper left corner is so light that it takes me off the page. My eye wants to go and escape through the upper left corner. So if you did some burning in there and brought the tonality down in that area, I think it would be much easier to stay inside of the image, because I love the shape of the hand cupping the cat's neck, and it creates a circle. Then you come around from the fingertips around to the left, to the nose of the cat, the eyes, the ears, and around again. So it's a beautifully composed image. Just see if you can take down the tonality of the sleeve and the bottom of the, I guess it's a jacket that the person is wearing there on the upper left corner. I really appreciated this image titled Kindred Spirits, and I gave it a title of I gave it a score of 7.5. Next.
That concludes the monochrome. And the next category is our special subject this month, which is silhouettes. The first image is Maui sunset.
Okay, Maui sunset. All right. Well, if you look in the sky, there isn't much happening up there. So I don't know that it's so important to keep all of that. I would probably crop it into a more of a panoramic shape, lose the top, a little bit of the left side, because that you don't want to crop into and have that, I guess it's a vertical line there above the umbrella, the silhouette shape of the umbrella. You don't want that just hanging out there. So I would crop across it or into it so that you don't see it any longer. I don't think you're going to miss anything there. And the one little bright pole in the lower left quadrant of the image, where the light is hitting a pole there, it's probably, I can't tell what it is, but it's a bright spot. Again, with your Photoshop tools or whatever tool you might be using, just take that out because it's a distraction. I don't mind the bright pole that looks like it's a light pole that's has a base that has looks like a circular cement base. That light bright pole doesn't bother me so much because I know where it's coming from. But the one that's just floating there is bothersome in the composition, and I would take it out. All right, I gave this Maui sunset image a score of 7.0. Next.
Sunset silhouette.
Okay, I really appreciate this, the shapes of these three trees. Again, a nice number of threes, and the composition is nicely balanced. I probably would play a little bit more with the saturation. It's a silhouette. There's no detail in that black area of the trees and the rocks in the bottom, or the landscape edge on the bottom. Maybe there are hills or mountains in the background. There's no detail there, so you don't have to worry about what's going to happen to that, but punch the contrast and saturate that color a little bit more. That's why we're appreciating this moment. I think the only thing I can say about that third tree, the one that's to the far right, and you can't control this, but maybe depending on ability in Photoshop, can bend that trunk a little bit and give it a little more character, because it's straight up and down, and then it just has a few small branches. So see how much more character the other trees have when they're leaning and having branches that are going other places. So depending on how creative you can be in the computer, etc., you could play with that. On this image, sunset silhouette, I gave it a score of 7.5. Next.
Styling surfer.
I'm just waiting for the image still. Sorry,
Okay.
the delay here. Okay. I really appreciated the title, and I really appreciated this powerful capture. My kudos to the maker. I think it's a powerful image, probably for the whole body of all the work that I looked at, and the ones I'm commenting on this evening in all of the categories. If I had to pick just one image, I would say this is my favorite. It is a powerful capture, great choice of shutter speed, obviously, and the composition is beautifully handled. I love the diagonal line that's coming from his fingertips on the far left, all the way through his shoulder, his head, his arms, and his fingers on the right-hand side. So he's going down, he's moving from the left frame to the right on a diagonal line. All the textures where the light has hit the water and backlit against the silhouette of his body is just fabulous. My eyes can dance around in this image forever. There's so much going on here, and I love the highlights where your shutter not your exposure, excuse me, your f-stop choice made the highlights of the sun hitting the water in the background with those little circles. I just love the textures. It's another texture that's added to this composition. It's a really, really powerful image. I'd love to see that as a piece of art on someone's wall. Hopefully you've done that for yourself. If not, maybe you will. I really appreciated this image titled Styling Surfer, and I gave it a score of 9.0. Next.
Stealth fighter.
Just waiting for the image again. Sorry.
Mhm.
I think it's my internet. Where it's because of where I live. Okay. Great title. We definitely know what that is, and we know where he's going. So on a diagonal line again, from the left to the right, I might just have cropped out a little bit on the top. Do we really need all that sky? I don't think so. I think it might be more powerful without a little bit more on the top. And I would saturate those colors, punch it a little bit, give it some more zing. We aren't seeing any detail in the black and the silhouette of the airplane shape. So take those colors in the background and saturate it. I gave this image, it's nicely composed, by the way. I gave this image titled Stealth Fighter a score of 8.5. Next.
Sunset Motel.
I commend the maker on the choice of the sunset. It's playful, it's fun. Without seeing the image, Sunset Motel, are we going to be looking at a Motel 6 on the side of the road? I don't think so. So it was fun that you played with the title. We're talking about birds in a tree. I love it. Nice title. a lovely composition. I love all the nature except that one little fence post on the far right-hand side of the image at the bottom edge. So everything is natured shaped. There's no straight edges. It's just birds and sky and tree and limbs. And I love the playful shapes. So if you have the capacity to take that fence post out, that one little straight edge, and even the straight, the horizontal line, it looks like the top of a fence possibly at the bottom edge, I would just take that out. You don't need it. It doesn't do anything for the image. And it would even have more points in my estimation. So this image titled Sunset Motel, I gave it a score of 8.0. Next.
Dolly.
Okay. This is an interesting composition. I know it's just a very simple silhouette, but for some reason, I am really bothered by the lack of the head on the top. I know it's probably a hat and it's smushed down in the hair, but for some reason, it to me it looked like it'd been and it was bothering me. I certainly wouldn't crop anything out of this image. It's nice and tight already. I appreciate the crisp edge and the lovely little silhouette of the profile of the doll. I just gave this image titled Dolly, a 6.5. Next.
After the tourists have gone.
After the tourists have gone. That's great. Great title. Because that made me, when I heard the title, like, where are we going to be? If the tourists are gone, what are we going to see? Right? It gave me some intrigue. It gave me wanting more, right? That's what you want to do with your titles. Make somebody go, oh, what is it going to be? Feed me something that I'm going to go, oh, I'm interested now. You piqued my interest. Okay. So I think that this image would be more powerful as a panoramic crop. I don't think that you need all that sand in the foreground. There's nothing storytelling happening there. There's no point of interest. There's no, footprints leading me into the shapes or anything like that. So I think you'd crop out that bottom edge and just make it a panorama shape. I might even saturate a little bit more in the colors in the sky. Why not? What else do you have to work with? Not much. And again, I know that probably that person that's standing under the lifeguard tower, they're not posing for you. So you might have, and I don't know if this is possible, wait, watch, wait, watch, wait. Where are they gonna walk away? Are they standing? Is the arm separated from the surfboard that they're holding? All those little details matter because it's creating negative and positive space in that little triangle that person's head is in under the composition of the silhouette of the lifeguard tower. So again, playing with shapes, especially when you're just talking about silhouettes, it matters so much because all those little details matter. So keep looking, have patience, and exercise if possible. When you can become the director on the set, if it's possible to do it, why not? You can always ask, right? So for this image titled After the Tourists Have Gone, I gave it a score of 7.5. Next.
Walk on beach.
Wow, so look at that sky. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. That is just a fabulous, that's what I call a God sky. I just love seeing that. And who wouldn't, right? I'm just more excited about the sky than anything. And unfortunately, as my eyes come to the bottom of the image with the people, that's where I'm sorry, but I had to really lose points there. When you are talking silhouette, it's one thing, but in these two people, we have details of, looks like the woman is possibly carrying a child or something else. And we have details there. And then in the man, the subject movement has really, unfortunately, messed up the possibilities on this. If I had been standing there, I would have waited for them to walk away and then photograph just the sky and the sand and the water, because that's where the power is. If these people were posing for you, then I would strongly suggest having more art direction for them to be in positions that is complementary to the human figure. There is so much that can be done with posing people and looking for things that are complementary for people. And one of the things I used to do in my work often, all the time actually, was talk about clothing choices. We would talk about clothing and how the clothing works with the body, the colors, the tones, the design, the lines, etc. In this case, it looks to me, and I could be wrong, it looks to me like these were just two people that happened to be walking on the beach, and there you go, you captured it. But for me, because of the body positions of these two people, I had to take off quite a few points from that wowza sky. Okay, sorry about that. These are honest comments. All right, for this image titled Walk on Beach, I gave it a 7.5. Next.
Mulberry fern.
Mulberry fern, fine. It's a fun title and a fun image. Just the contrast of it, the composition, I think, is more powerful without the bottom. If you crop in and into that white area and just let the white space come into the frame, I think it's way more interesting than having to show the whole, if you will, window of white. It could crop in on the bottom so that the window of white is part of the bottom edge of the image. I think it's much more powerful. I gave this image titled Mulberry Fern a score of 8.0. Next.
Yearning.
Okay, yearning. There was an R missing in my title page, and I didn't know if it was leaning or yearning. So it was on my page, it was spelled YEANING, so there was no
Yes,
R. But
I
now that I
believe
know
that's
it's yearning, I can see that those people are yearning to go to Catalina. I know it well. So I appreciate the appreciation of yearning to be elsewhere. So one thing that bothered me in the image is the little bit of something blue on the edge of the water where the sand meets the water to the left of the person on the left side of the two people. If you run your eye along that edge, there's something bothering in that space there, and it needs to be cleaned up because it really bothered me when I was looking at it. It still bothers me as I'm looking at it, of what's going on there, different texture or something happening, and it needs to be fixed. The silhouettes of the people, because of the selective focus, they could be a little sharper, and that bothered me a little bit. When you're doing silhouettes of people, there's way more power, if you will, if you're in control and you're the director on the set and you're directing them to give you a profile, then you would have a lot more interest. You might be losing the feeling of yearning for Catalina, but you might have a different story than if they were facing each other, or the one on the right-hand side was turning and looking at the person on the left-hand side with the profile. So again, if you have that control as a director on the set and you can control your subject, it would have a lot more interest, I believe. And of course, then tighten in on your sharpness there as well. So for this image titled Yearning, I gave it a score of 7.5. Next image, please.
Moonglow through the branches.
Oh, wow. It is beautiful. But do you really need to say moon glow through the branches? We can see that that's through the branches. I think just the word moon glow would be enough. And if obviously this is a composition, I was thinking if this was my composition, I would even enlarge that moon so it's more of the composition. Why not enlarge it and make it even larger in the composition so that it's bigger behind the silhouette of the tree? I love the grayscale in the gray area of the image. Really appreciate the makers letting us see the textures, the steps going up to where the tree is, and the textures in the sky as well. So I would again enlarge the moon. It's a powerful composition as is, and I think if the moon was enlarged even more, it would be more powerful. I gave this image titled Moon Glow Through the Branches a score of 9.0.
That concludes
Okay.
the silhouettes. And our final category is artistic expression. The race is on.
Wow, talk about movement. I love the fact that the creator has been using some tools to really give us the sense of motion, the erraticness of the colors, the textures, the tones. I really have fun with this image. It just has so much energy. And it doesn't even bother me that the upper right area, the edge of the frame, that I don't have much, if any, detail in that white area. It's really held in together with the white area that's looks like a manhole cover that's the shape of an oval at the bottom of the frame. It sort of holds the image. So I was very excited about this image. Titled The Race is On, and I gave it a score of 9.0. Next.
Elegance in motion.
Elegance in motion. It certainly is. It's very elegant. I love the monochromatic colors and tones here. I'm a little confused by the fact that the bird is sort of looking up, maybe chasing an insect or something. But when I looked at this image, I was wondering, is that branch really necessary? I love the way it's arched over the bird and the bird's shape of its wings, the way the capture has happened where your shutter went off right as the wings were open like that is just gorgeous. The shape is beautiful, but would it be more powerful without the branch? Again, I don't know your shutter as far as taking that branch out. If I was you, I would play with that as a possibility. And I certainly would crop in tighter. We don't really need all that space around the bird. With this image titled Elegance in Motion, I gave it a score of 7.5. Next.
Marigold.
What a lovely capture. And it certainly is merry and gold. I love the title. It suits it beautifully. I love the textures. I love the playfulness and the use of color and tone. I'm not sure if I need quite as much space around the top edge and the left side of the frame. I might crop in on that as just a little bit so that it's not so dead center. I appreciate the color tones that are brought in on the right side of the frame where it's sort of these grays and silvery grays. It's really beautifully handles, truly a lovely piece of art. I really appreciated the delicateness of this and the lines in the flower area itself. This image titled Elegance in Motion, I gave it a 9.0.
No,
Next.
no, it was not elegant. Elegance in motion.
Oh, excuse me. Marigold. Pardon me. Marigold.
The bike race.
The next, the bike race. Here's another tool being used to give us a sense of motion and even maybe a little sense of it being chaotic and a little anticipation of, oh, I hope nobody crashes. Who's going fastest? Where are we going? Where are they going? They have space to ride into, if you will. So I think the composition's well handled as to where they are in the frame. And I love all the colors and patterns. It's very alive and well. I might even saturate a little bit more and bring my exposure down a little bit. The bright whites are so bright. Just come down on your exposure by a few points. On this image titled The Bike Race, I gave it an 8.5.
Remembering Kansas.
Okay, that title made me go, whoa, when I see a twister here. So I'm not sure if that's a twister, but I like the composition simply for the shape and the tone and the textures. It's I guess some people in the area of art might say, well, that's a piece of modern art. Well, whatever it is, I think the composition is lovely and it holds my focus. And I love the movement from on a diagonal line again from the lower right, almost the center, but it's to the right still, the diagonal line that goes up to the upper left. The tones, the colors, the textures, it's a lovely composition. And I gave this image titled Remembering Kansas a score of 8.0. Next.
Color burst.
Okay, color burst. It is a burst of color. And I appreciate that. Somehow it feels to me that this exposure in the file was underexposed. I don't see, I appreciate the palette, if you will, of the pastel type of colors, but it feels to me as if it's been underexposed. And I'm not sure if that's true, but I think I would have come in a little bit on the crop on the bottom, and just the pink petals, the rose that's showing in the lower left corner, being somewhat blocked by the yellow that's in the foreground. I think I don't need it, because when I do a crop and I hold my cropping tool at the bottom, I almost end up with possibly a square frame, and I'm more comfortable with that square frame. If you can punch the contrast on this a little bit and saturate the color, I think it would give it a few more points of interest. Again, I gave this image titled Color Burst a score of 7.5. Next.
Blossoms of Springtime.
Okay, Blossoms of Springtime. Indeed, it's beautifully titled. I love the artistic approach on this. I love the textures. It's a very painterly approach, obviously, and being a painter, I've certainly appreciated that. I love the sharpness on the blossoms that are closest to the camera lens, if you will, that we have some sharpness there, and then the depth of field is dropped off so that the painterly effects of the rest of the limb and the lighting area in the middle, the lit area, brings my focus of attention right to the petals there on the center blossom. I really appreciated the composition. I think it's beautifully handled with the Y and the leading lines of the branches. Very, very subtle, very beautifully handled. And I gave this image, Blossoms of Spring, a score of 9.0. Next.
My, that's refreshing.
And again, what a fun title. Use of words, I think that's really fun, and could almost feel that flower going, ah, that's refreshing. Even though it's a flower, it feels too, right? So it gave me a little laugh, a little giggle when I saw it. And I think the title is splendid. It's really, really well selected. Your choice of shutter speed with the splashes of water, the water coming down, the streaks of the water, and the drips off of the edge of the bird of paradise is lovely. I appreciate what the viewers saw here. I appreciate the makers seeing this, first of all, and whether that rain was really just happening or you were part of it being the creative process, creating it to happen, doesn't matter. From the viewer's perspective, the bird of paradise is facing to the right and has space of where it's facing. And I love the playfulness of it and the playfulness of the title. I might even put just a slight bit of vignette on the bottom edge, especially the lower left edge and corner, so that it holds it a little bit tighter because of the brightness of the water splashes in that area. So you want to make sure it doesn't fall out of the bottom of the frame in the lower left area. But this image titled My, that's refreshing. I gave it a score of 8.5. Next.
Ballet on Water.
Indeed, she's looking like she is dancing ballet, but an incredible artist, both with the camera who saw this image and the athletes who's doing the ballet. I really, really appreciate the title. I think the powerful part of this image obviously is right in the center of the frame, and I love the fact that the athlete's right arm is up into that negative space, if you will. When I was playing with the cropping on this, I felt that if you take your cropping tool and you come in and lose that far left pier stanchion or bottom, whatever we call those things that come down on a pier, piling, I guess it's called. If you lose that, I think you bring your focus right to the subject in a much more powerful way. I love the fact that her gaze, the athlete's gaze, leads right into that big wave that's arching in its shape with all the textures of the water. Really appreciate this, but I really think that the cropping off of the left side of this image will make it even more powerful. For this image titled Ballet on Water, I gave it a 9.0. Next.
Vibrations.
vibrations. I love it. Science in a bowl. I love seeing the play of the playfulness of vibrations and the science of the playfulness of what water does with vibrations. It's quite amazing. Appreciate the texture. I appreciate what you've done with it. I think almost in this case, since we're talking about art and texture, is it really even necessary to see the edge of the bowl? When I was playing with the crop, I was actually making it even more quote unquote fine art by losing the fact that we're looking into a bowl of water. If you come in and tighten up and lose the edges of the bowls, or even darken those edges so that it just goes into space, if you will, play with your tools that might change this into an image that is even more intriguing. So I really feel that we don't even really need to know that it's a bowl with water that's vibrating. It's just art. I gave this image titled Vibrations an 8.5. Next.
Luminescent bouquet.
Well, it certainly is that. I love the luminescence of it. I love the color tones. I don't think that it needs so much space around it. I know I've been harping on cropping all night, but I really would tighten this up. We don't need that much black space around it. I think it's a powerful and fun image. The tonalities are great, and just tighten up on it. For this image titled Luminescent Bouquet, I gave it an 8.0. Next.
Op art.
Okay, op art. This is fun. I don't know how it was created, and it doesn't matter. When it comes to art, whatever you've created, whatever tools you've used, if the image itself stands on its own, then that's what it's about. So it's just fun. It's playful. I think I would saturate the colors a bit more and even bump the contrast so that it's even more powerful that way. If you bump that contrast, we hardly know what we're looking at, and it keeps the eye very, very interested and roaming through the image. On the panels to the far right, if I'm counting from the far right, the panels that have the greenery within them, panel 2, 3, and 4, if again, depending on your ability with Photoshop or whatever tools you're using, I would probably clone in some of the greenery into the areas that go into skin tones or whatever that's in there that we're seeing that don't that it's not the same as the rest, because it really asks to be the same, in my opinion, as an artist, and I want to see those kind of turned green and followed in. Kind of the change of the tonality and even the sharpness there is not intriguing to me. It's bothersome. So that's one thing that I would change. I really appreciated this image titled Op Art, and I gave it a title of 8.5. Excuse me, a score of 8.5.
Okay, that concludes our critique for tonight. Congratulations to all the photographers and thanks to our judge.
Yes, thank you, Leah. I did miss one score in putting them on the form. You might have it, Rodney. It was when there was the internet, blocked out, and it was
hiccup. Okay.
a hiccup in the internet, and it was in pictorial,
Yes.
and it
Okay.
was question mark South African masked weaver, and it was the slide number on here. You probably don't have that on there.
Number 9. Yeah, I have it. It's slide number 9, and I gave that a score of 8.5.
Okay, I had question mark 0.5, so I got that. All right, great. Thank you so much. That was the only thing I couldn't catch. So otherwise, we're good.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Good job.
Great. Well, that was
excellent.
lots of fun.
Well, thank you. It was excellent comments. I'm sure we all learned a lot, and we're going to pay a whole lot more attention to titles.
There you go. Titles, composition, cropping, all the
Right.
tools that we have at our fingertips. All of those things are so important, and more. There's other things too.
Yes, I apologize for that one typo that I didn't catch. The
Oh,
yearning.
yearning.
Yes.
Oh, it's
And,
okay.
and I have
It's
to
okay.
apologize twice because I made the typo in the first place. That was my
Oh, did
image.
you? Well, I didn't catch it, so
It's way bad.
you all can, let's see.
I don't know about the entries.
Oh, thank you, Leah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. I hope you all gained some type of insight or have some more yearning to create more. And all I can suggest is the things that I spoke of earlier. Always be looking, even if your camera isn't in your hands. Always be looking when you're in the grocery store, when you're standing in line, or you're sitting in your car and you look at the window light on the person that's handing you your cup of coffee. Always look at light and be composing and click that camera, even if you don't have an actual camera in your hands. It is an exercise and it will heighten your ability to see. That's what this is about, is seeing and appreciating and then recording, right? And we have so many tools at our fingertips.
Just as an aside here, reading the chat to you, I'm sure you didn't have time to look at it. That was taking place. But we have Jack saying thank you, Leah. Joel, thanks very much. Myra, thanks and good night. And Jack, again, appreciate your insights. And thank you so much. Love to learn from pros from Cecilia. So there's your kudos.
Thank you for your thank you for your kind comments. It's greatly appreciated. I love my craft, and I'm always excited when I'm in the company of people that also like to see. Take care, everyone. Happy Halloween.
You too.
You
Thank
too.
you so
Thank
much,
you so
Leah.
much, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye,
Okay.
Leah. Take
Good
care.
night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Are you stopping the recording?
Sounds like it was
Oh, yes, I
already
better
evening.
do that, didn't I?
Oh, sorry.